if you can basically steal the Google usage of the top 10% of humans in the world, I mean, you'd basically steal all of Google's cash flow. I don't know exactly where this like threshold is. Like, do you need 22%? Do you need the top 40%? But like, I think it's pretty fair to say that ChatGPT users are probably overlapped with or pretty comped pretty closely to the most valuable Google users. So I don't know where exactly like the breaking point is, but I do think that like if I'm in Google, I'm like, if I was on the board, I'd probably like be demanding immediate action like 2 years ago, because I think their cash cows kind of going to be kind of choked by OpenAI and by ChatGPT.
I want to talk about that in a sec, because I do think, and I kind of feel it today, that Google is going to go to zero. Is this thing on?
Yesterday's price is not today's price.
Welcome back to the Run the Numbers podcast, where we talk about VCs being helpful. Today's guest is Turner Novak, founder and managing partner at Banana Capital and the host of the PL podcast. Turner invests in consumer networks, but he's also building one himself. He's one of the rare VCs who's as well known for his Twitter threads, which are hilarious, and podcast interviews as he is for his portfolio of bangers. We're going to talk about monetizing consumer platforms and the never-ending search for distribution, from Substack's latest funding round to whether email is still the most valuable owned channel, to which consumer networks are sitting on the highest ARPU and which ones are leaving money on the table. We'll dig into why Pinterest hasn't nailed monetization despite all that intent data, what Facebook's long game might be for Marketplace, and whether TikTok can actually challenge Amazon in commerce. And we'll look ahead to the next wave of distribution, how startups should think about building on top of dominant platforms that will eventually close, and what it might mean if OpenAI becomes the next great gatekeeper. All this and much, much more after a short word from our sponsors. Morgan Stanley recently said NetSuite is under the threat of disruption. That's right, NetSuite, you never get fired for buying its software. So what's the threat? The answer, Rillet. Rillet is the AI native ERP modern finance teams are switching to because it's faster, simpler, and 100% built for how teams operate today. It doesn't take 12 months to implement, it doesn't feel like filing taxes to use, and your accounting team will actually love it. PostScript closes the books in only 3 days. Windsurf, bet you heard of them, they run finance with just 2 people. And Rillet is backed by Sequoia Capital. Yes, that's Sequoia. Unicorns like PostScript and Windsurf and hundreds of other companies have made the switch, and they're closing books in record time. If I were running a finance team today, I wouldn't default to legacy. I'd look at what's coming next, and Rillet is here. You don't want to be that guy at cocktail parties complaining about how bad his ERP is. Wait, am I the only guy who talks about ERPs around a keg? See how fast your team can move. Book a demo at rillet.com/metrics. That's RILLET.com/metrics. RILLET.com/metrics. As a CFO, you're expected to bring clarity to everything, including how your company manages ownership. The tools you use should make that easier, not harder. But when they come with hidden fees, data you can't always trust, and support you can't rely on, you end up with more frustration than clarity. That's where Pulley comes in. Pulley is the cap table management platform built for finance leaders who need accurate, decision-ready data from a system that works for your business, not against it. With Pulley, you get intuitive workflows, audit-ready reporting, and support you can count on, all backed by predictable pricing you can plan around, so you can stay compliant and make smarter decisions about your company's future. Manage everything from fundraise modeling to ASC 718 reporting to custom liquidity programs, all on one trusted platform. Hundreds of high-growth companies like Linear, Fathom, and Runway trust Pulley to help turn ownership into a strategic advantage, and joining them is now easier than ever. You can switch to Pulley in as little as 5 days, and for a limited time, they're offering 25% off your first year. To claim your exclusive offer, visit pulley.com/mostlymetrics. That is pulley.com/mostlymetrics. Pulley.com/mostlymetrics. Listen, being a CFO, it's not always that glamorous. Sometimes I find myself watering the plants and taking out the garbage in the office. And, the best CFOs I know they're true business leaders. They know how to drive growth in heroic fashion. Unfortunately, the status quo of finance makes that really hard because day to day, we're mostly up to our eyeballs in spreadsheets and receipts. Thankfully, there's a financial provider who has built a solution to match your ambition, Brex. Brex designed a modern corporate card and spend platform that controls spend proactively and automates tedious expense and accounting tasks. Brex frees up CFOs to focus on high-impact projects that drive growth. You know, the shit that's actually worth your CFO time. So how does Brex work? You can embed your expense policy inside the corporate card to prevent out-of-policy spend before it happens. Receipts and memos are auto-generated, so you always have what you need to close the books fast. Managers get freed up from reviewing, every possible expense under the sun because in-policy expenses are auto-approved and AI will flag any exceptions. And all the while, your expense detail is syncing with your ERP because Brex integrates with almost all of them. I love that, from QuickBooks to NetSuite. It's your time to shine as the strategic growth driver you are, and Brex can make it easy. More than 30,000 companies like DoorDash, Coinbase, and SeatGeek use Brex to make every dollar and every minute count. Join them at brex.com/metrics. That's brex.com/metrics. Turner, welcome to the podcast, man.
I'm excited to be here. I actually have a pretty embarrassing accounting story if people want to hear it.
Do you want to start with that?
We'll start with that. I got a D+ the first time I took financial accounting in college. Pretty embarrassing. I'm sure we've got a bunch of like CPAs, financial pros here, and I couldn't even remember what DED or whatever the acronym was that they teach you in Accounting 101. Couldn't even remember that going into the test. So
don't sweat it. I'm more of a P&L guy myself. I tend to get lost on balance sheets.
And actually, I retook the class and I got an A, and I ended up majoring in accounting. So it was all good. I got mostly A's from there on out. But yeah, that first time I took it, I don't know, for whatever reason, I didn't really study for tests back my first 2 years of college, and you kind of need to study for accounting tests. They're pretty hard. So
it's really hard to wing an accounting test.
Yeah, I mean because it was basically like throughout high school, you just kind of show up and you kind of remember the stuff and you get good enough to get into college, and then I kind of did that the first 2 years, and then my GPA going to get into the business school, it was like 0.002 below the threshold.
Okay.
So I didn't get in. So I basically, like, if I would have gotten one more question right on a test, I probably would have gotten into the business school. And I just had this realization is like, oh wow, I should probably actually try and study. And yeah, I did pretty good from there on out. But yeah, just always, I always, like, from then on, I was like, all right, got to be good at accounting. So then I ended up majoring in it, and now I don't remember anything. So.
And look at you. Now you're a steward of capital.
I'm a steward of capital. Exactly.
I've been following you on Twitter. I refuse to call it X for so long now. And I've listened to almost every episode of the Peel. So, like, off the bat, congrats on all the media success.
Amazing. Thank you. Yeah, I kind of accidentally became an influencer. Like, I was just trying to get a job in VC 8 years ago.
Yeah.
What years? Yeah, probably like 7-8 years ago, and just kind of accidentally became an influencer. And then at this point, I kind of have a media company, and I still don't fully know what I'm doing. And I'm still pretty just slow to embrace the whole, what it means to be kind of an influencer. I feel like, coming from the finance background, you think more institutional, you think of doing things by the book. You see those TikToks where it's like finance TikTok, where it's like the people like, here's how to get passive income, and it's like buying Airbnbs, and just like, you don't associate with that coming from more of a finance, like accounting background. So it's always just been really hard for me to kind of reconcile how it's all happened. So I feel like I've been a little slow to like fully embrace it. But
I don't want to be apocryphal. I think it was Mario Gabrielli who described it as like a mullet, where it's like media in the front, business in the back, or it can be the other way around. But
yeah.
Like, I kind of look at a lot of what I do in that respect. Like, I don't have a venture product behind it to sell, but like, I envision someday having some sort of data product or data as a service or benchmarking or surveying product where the front door is the media, and then the back door you monetize through either a SaaS model or usage-based model.
Yeah, and it's interesting with media, like, if you do that right, the whole content to commerce, the whole, using content to acquire customers or build a relationship, in a sense, when you get big enough, you can kind of start sponsoring the content too. And I know you've kind of done that. And that kind of happened to me, whereas a friend was just like, I really want to sponsor your podcast. And he kind of like helped me do it because I wasn't really thinking about it, but he was like, I want to do it, and like gave me money. And so you kind of hit this point where you almost have cheap CAC or free CAC or negative CAC, where it's like people are paying you to build your own distribution to then sell a product that, you were making money. Like your customer acquisition was actually a profitable business. So it's kind of a new phenomenon, but maybe it's actually not new. I'm trying to think if any businesses have kind of been like that. It would have been like if Yellow Pages actually had something that they did on the back end, or like newspapers, maybe if they had like an events business.
I think Bloomberg and Charles Schwab both started out as newsletters in some way, shape, or form, but that was like in the fax machine days.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, yes, and I think even like a lot of investors, like Bill Gurley started writing his Above the Crowd newsletter. I think he would do things like fax it out to people. He'd get everyone's numbers. It would be at a conference, then he'd like add them to his list and fax the stuff. Like he kind of like the whole, when you get an email and you're like, how the hell did this person get my email and put me on their newsletter? He did that for it was like fax machines, or I think it was like pagers or something, or like Palm Pilots back in like the 90s or the early 2000s.
You can't unsubscribe from that either.
From a Palm Pilot, you can't?
No, from a fax machine. It's like, who just keeps sending me these?
It's like, oh, they're pretty good. It's like, oh, yeah, negative CAC, or like LTV to CAC ratio discussion. Oh, this is pretty good.
It's interesting because I had a friend one time, and he like knew about my business. He's like, well, I read Clouded Judgment by Jim and Ball. I read stuff that Alex Clayton comes out at Meritech. Like, why don't they monetize that? I'm like, no, they are monetizing it. It's just a different type of monetization.
Yeah, it's like asset management business. You've got management fees. That's the easy, quick, hopefully carried interest, which is hopefully a lot more than the management fees. It just takes a lot longer to get into it. And then, or maybe like a salary, right? Like if you're working at a company, you make high six figures in some cases. So, some of these partners, some of these funds, you can get 7-figure salary, which is a pretty good way to monetize a newsletter.
Are you on your third fund now?
Yes, currently investing in a fund number 3.
That's amazing. And so how many years have you been at it on your own?
Since basically January of 2021 was when I was kind of officially on my own.
And then walk us through the evolution of the media platform. So you blew up on Twitter, right? But then did it go newsletter and then podcast?
Yeah. So I started the newsletter. I actually had been going even further back. I wrote a couple articles on Seeking Alpha in college. I don't know if do you remember Seeking Alpha?
Yeah, it's
like a stock research website.
It's still there. I don't know why I'm saying it's a throwback. But.
I haven't used it in such a long time. But yeah, I think I just remember, in college, I joined the investment club and just got really into investing in college. And, when you're 19, you read some of those and they're like, some article about like today, it might be like, is Google a zero? Right. And you like read like, oh yeah, Google's going to zero. Like I'm going to short Google or whatever. And you just like, I remember watching the Twitter IPO back in college with my roommates. Like we skipped class to watch the Twitter IPO. It delayed like 3 or 4 hours. I think it was supposed to go public at 10 and it went out at 1 or 2 or something like that in the afternoon. So I remember just like, you could get paid for submitting an article. So I'd spend a weekend writing something and I'd submit it and get approved and I'd get $100. And for me in college, material amount of money, right? Like that was $100.
That's a lot of Natty Light.
Exactly. Yeah. For me, it was like rent, but, or maybe a little bit of both. So yeah, I kind of had always sort of done that. And then I worked at a bank just doing credit right out of school. And one of the kind of the memos I wrote for a new customer, CEO like emailed me like one off and was like, this is a great write up, really helpful kind of a thing. So it was just like, you're always kind of into writing, and was always kind of something I knew I was probably pretty good at. And when I'd been trying to make the jump into venture, living in Michigan, it's a lot harder to just go to an event, go to a happy hour, getting a job just generally in anything technology related. Like I had friends who shorted Facebook when it went public, or shorted Netflix because they had negative net income, or they
right.
like with Facebook, like you look at it, it's like, oh, its PE ratio is 52. Like this is an obvious short. And that one friend actually made a ton of money because it did go down after the IPO. like 50% it dropped. But it's just like the way that people think about investing is just totally different. It's more of like value investing versus growth investing. And I probably have that more of that growth mindset than the value mindset. It's kind of like if you're a value investor, your upside is maybe 2x, maybe 3x. And hopefully you don't have as much downside if you're good. Growth investing, it's basically like you lose all your money or you get 100x. And that was just way more interesting to me personally. And so, yeah, I kind of started tweeting a little bit just because it was maybe more natural to me. I'd used Twitter for a long time just for fantasy football and following the news. And I remember I saw something from a VC in Michigan at Ludlow. His name's Jonathan Triest. He runs Ludlow Ventures in Detroit. And he was like, if I was trying to get into VC today, I would make a fantasy VC portfolio where I had a fake portfolio with fake money, and I'd invest in some startups and I just write about it publicly. So that's what I did. And I was kind of familiar with that concept from college. I had like a paper trading account where I would just buy. The way I would do it is I would just like see a stock and I just buy it and I kind of follow it. And that's how I learned about investing with these like fake paper trading accounts. I think it was like investing.com or something, or stockportfolio.com. I forget what website it was even on, but you have a portfolio of, it was like thousands of companies. That's how I would learn about investing, was at this fake portfolio.
Hey, thanks for listening. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. So if you listen to this podcast, you'll know that I am incredibly passionate about the FP&A space because that's the route I went to get to CFO. And I want to tell you about a tool that has exploded over the past few years. It's called Aleph. And I remember getting outbounded by them about 2.5 years ago, and I actually took the bait because they claimed to be able to do a demo with my live data, with me right there on the call. And so I had to see it to believe it. And it was the founder running demos back then. Shout out Albert, hope you're listening. And he connected my NetSuite and built my P&L using their Excel add-in in like 15 minutes. And I was really impressed. Since then, Aleph has gone on to raise money from some of the top VCs out there, and they've built an impressive roster of customers. Many of their customers have been on the podcast, like the CFO at Turo, 8 Sleep, and Zapier. They're all really big champions and supporters of Aleph like me. But it's not just an Excel add-in. Aleph also allows finance teams to work with their live cross-system data using Google Sheets and their web app. And that's cool because it gives teams the option to support a wide range of needs and workflows like budgeting, forecasting, and variance analysis. And speaking of variance analysis, they're doing some really cool things with AI-powered variance analysis. It basically allows you to figure out what's going on and why, and it takes the time that you'd usually spend from hours to minutes. It's really cool. So I highly recommend checking them out and taking them up on that demo or trial, just like I did back in the day. And you can learn more and get started at getaleph.com/run. That is getaleph.com, aleph.com/run. Tell them CJ sent you. All right, I got to get up on my soapbox for a sec here. Everybody's talking about AI powered this and automated that. But here's the thing about revenue recognition. It's not just about moving data around. It's about getting it right, full stop. So RightRev is laser focused on one thing, RevRec that auditors actually trust. See, there's a difference between automating revenue processes and automating revenue recognition correctly. RightRev was actually built by the godfather of RevRec, who understands ASC 606 compliance, audit controls, data validation, and the flexibility needed for complex B2B contracts. We're not trying to be your billing system or your ERP. We're the revenue recognition engine that sits between your contracts and your financials, making sure every dollar is recognized correctly, on time, every time. Companies like Snowflake and Logic Monitor don't just need fast revenue reporting, they need revenue reporting that's audit ready from day one. And that's honestly where RightRev shines. And what I love about RightRev is they're not out there trying to be everything to everyone and just slap some, AI slop on top of it. While everyone is building these massive platforms that do everything in a kind of mediocre fashion, RightRev does one thing exceptionally well. They make sure your revenue recognition is bulletproof. Ready to stop gambling with your RevRec? Visit RightRev.com to see how we make complex revenue simple. That's RightRev.com, where revenue recognition actually works. Most finance leaders still see travel as a cost center, something to manage, reduce, or delay until the numbers look better. But the Navan Business Travel Index, validated by NASDAQ, empowered by millions of corporate transactions captured through Navan's platform on how organizations are meeting and investing in face-to-face connections to fuel growth, tells a different story. Companies that are growing are moving. Business travel activity is up double digits year over year. International hotel spend is rising faster than domestic. Rideshare use is surging as teams compress more high-value meetings into fewer days. This isn't about perks. It's about pipeline, deal velocity, and customer retention. The CFOs winning right now aren't slashing travel, they're optimizing it. They know exactly where every dollar is going and the ROI it's delivering. The Navan BTI helps you see how your program stacks up against the market each quarter and where you might be leaving revenue on the table. Get the data, spot the gaps, turn your travel spend into a competitive edge. Download the latest Navan Business Travel Index today at navan.com/BTI. That's navan.com/BTI, and lead with the numbers that actually drive growth.
And so I did that with venture. I did 2 of those just over the course of basically like a 12-month period, and use it to get a bunch of interviews. Super long process, but eventually took an internship at a fund that was open to me working remotely. This was in 2019, so pre-COVID. Really weird to be trying to do venture not living in San Francisco. But I was just like, this is my competitive advantage. Like, I didn't go to a school anyone's heard of. I didn't work at Uber. My friend's not starting OpenAI tomorrow. Like, I can't really compete with what everyone else is doing. So why would I give myself a disadvantage and remove what I'm actually good at? So that was kind of the thinking. And then started to write. I basically published those fantasy VC portfolios, and I kind of started to write a couple other articles. I think one of the ones people probably would have read, it was a deep dive on TikTok and ByteDance.
Yes.
That was kind of one of the things I did to first just kind of get to know people and kind of build a brand online. When Musical.ly rebranded as TikTok, I just kind of wrote about how I thought it was a great product. Like, this could be bigger than Facebook one day. Kind of like ridiculous stuff, but that was kind of the point. It was like, what is a super opinionated thing that I actually think could be true that people would see and they might disagree with, but they also might say like, oh, interesting perspective. Hadn't thought about it this way before. And then I wrote another one on a company called Pinduoduo. It's this Chinese e-commerce company, based like a dollar store on the internet. They went from 0 to a $200 billion publicly traded market cap in like 5 years, like craziest, fastest growth ever. They pulled back a little bit when China kind of cracked down on internet companies. And I think it dropped like 50 billion. I think it might be back up to 200 billion now. I haven't checked it lately, but I just kind of did a deep dive on the company, the history, how it worked. So I just kind of started writing these longer posts. And then I always had kind of thought about a podcast would be fun. I think the interesting thing about a podcast is when you write, you kind of have to do all the work yourself versus when it's a podcast, you can be like, hey, guest, come on. And like,
I'm having you do the legwork for me right now.
Yeah, exactly. I'm making you so much money. People are probably like, man, this Turner guy is so smart. That ad I heard earlier, I'm going to go buy the product because of this, right? And I just thought it would be fun too. It's a way to meet people. Like the way I use my podcast is it's just meeting people. I think might be kind of fun to learn from. Good to have in the network. Would be interesting for people to listen to. I kind of try to do it a mix of like publicly traded companies, but maybe like upcoming Series A or Series B or growth stage companies. And then sometimes I'll have other investors on. It's usually someone who's started something and can kind of talk through what it was like to get their company off the ground, the fund off the ground. I've had Peter Walker at Cardon before. We just went deep on a bunch of venture market metrics and data and stuff like that. So you just try to make it interesting for people. What would I want to listen to if I was tuning into a podcast? So that's kind of how it evolved over time. And then, it got to a point where I think just across like email and socials, I probably have like 230,000 kind of followers, subscribers, about 24,000 on email and probably like 200,000 just on like Twitter, LinkedIn, I don't know, maybe YouTube, I guess, the Spotify players. So it just kind of got to a point where like a friend was like, hey, let me give you some money and we can run some ads. I was like, oh, this is actually pretty cool. It's almost in a way easier to just, when you have the audience, to just take a pretty large check from a growth stage tech company that wants to reach your audience, then prove to an institutional kind of one of those blue chip Warren Buffett LPs why a founder would take your money because they follow you on the internet. Like there's definitely a little bit of a disconnect there. So it was kind of like this weird, it was like this lower friction model that I could use to just, monetize, I guess, at the end of the day, but then keep the fun going, keep investing. And then like the media, I don't know at this point, like which is the main business.
Yeah, what's the main thing?
I actually make more money from sponsors in my podcast than I do in management fees right now, which like personally, I don't know how I feel about it. Like it was definitely not on purpose, but everyone kind of thinks it's kind of interesting because like to the point, it's like every VC is trying to become an influencer, and I kind of accidentally did, so I'm just kind of leaning into it. But it's all the content is serving founders because I'm just trying to reach people who want to start companies super early and build a relationship with them, have them trust me kind of at scale. But then you also build the distribution to help them. So I've had a bunch of portfolio companies that come on the podcast. So you have like publicly traded $100 billion company, you have like a hot Series C stage company, then you have like a seed stage portfolio company, and then you got another public company in there. So you kind of help give them some almost like institutional credibility. They're like slotting in aside these people who have built like, you know, uh, 11 figure, 12 figure, market cap businesses. Whereas they're like, oh, we're doing 6 million in revenue or whatever, but we'll get there. We'll get there one day. So yeah, I just kind of think a lot of it about it all kind of weaves together.
It does.
So it's kind of one of the big things.
And I love that you're kind of on the corner of what's going on for social networks because you've invested in a number of real hitters. And you also understand, I think, like the consumer side of businesses and network effects better than Moat. I know you do some enterprise software investing as well, but I think you got your start with just understanding like the social graphs of all these different networks. And as we're doing this podcast now, Substack just announced a new round. What's your take on their growth arc?
I think Substack's super interesting because they have focused so much on subscription. And if you think about what Twitter has been trying to do, like Twitter has been trying to get the subscription revenue going, probably less so from supporting others, but more so you paying just to get a more premium experience in the app. But I feel like Substack, I looked at this about 2 years ago. It might be different. Hopefully for them, hopefully it's higher, but about 10% of the user base was basically paying for a paid sub.
Yep.
And if you just look at that across other networks, I mean, it's closer to like 1, 2, or 3%. I think Snapchat has done a decent job. I think I haven't looked at them recently, but I think they have something like 10 million people paying for Snapchat Plus, which is like you get different colored fonts in the texting, and like I think the big one is you can see who rewatched your story. So think about you're a 16-year-old kid.
Did my crush watch it?
You can see like, oh, they watched it 6 times. Like, let's go. Like you would pay money for that. One founder, he runs a company called Yubo in France. He described this to me as it's sort of like a friend finding product. You can go live in rooms with people, meet new people. So it's kind of like Tinder for friends, I guess, in a way. But he described it as when you go to the bar or the club, you're basically just paying for social status. Like you're buying yourself a drink, you're maybe buying like a girl a drink or like another person that you're romantically interested in, or just friends. You're paying $100, maybe you're paying for a table, like you're paying for bottle service, and you'll spend $10,000 at the club. Just like, is the wine or the champagne really worth $10,000? Is the view that you're getting really worth 4 or 5 figure? Like, no, but you're paying for the status. So I think there's an interesting kind of parallel in social products where is $10 really what someone would pay to rewatch a story, or could you figure out a way to make them pay $100 a month, $1,000 a month? And I think we're actually starting to see that now. I don't know how this has gone, but I think Hinge rolled out like a $250 a month product. I don't know if anyone listening has seen that before, but it was some kind of a premium service from Hinge. Hinge is a dating app. It's just kind of like you match with people, you say whether you like them or not, and if you both agree, you get to chat. I don't actually know what it did, but like I'm sure they could figure out a way to charge $1,000 a month to just like ensure that you meet people that you're romantically interested in, and that's like ultimately what people make money for, right? Like you try to make a lot of money, so you pair up and find a partner at the end of the day. Like that's what most people aspire to in life. So I feel like there's kind of like this unlimited upside that can ultimately be captured. I think thinking about it from a digital only perspective, there's I don't know how much it crosses over from like meeting someone in real life versus meeting somebody in a that's only virtual. Like you need to meet up. And I don't know how the apps actually, or the product, the digital product actually monetizes that in a sense. But maybe we're getting there with like Grok, the Grok companion. Did you see that?
Yeah, it was
Like
dark.
the anime dating thing. Yeah. Some people pay a lot for that stuff. So I don't know. I think I tend to try to avoid things that I feel like I couldn't be proud to tell my kids that I invested in. Like if anyone's seen that meme where it's like the woman in the kitchen with like three
Yeah, the
kids, and it's
dad,
like,
how'd we get so
Mom,
rich one?
yeah, it's like, Dad, how we get so rich? Like, I invested in like anime dating companion products. Like, I tend to think more like, how do we get rich? Oh, your dad like invested in a clean water company, or like he helped accountants close their books faster or something. Like, I try to think about like, would I be proud to tell my kids about this?
Yeah.
It's cut off a couple things a couple that I'm like, man, maybe I should have just done that one. To don't tell the kids about that one, maybe.
Yeah, it's like, what's the line? Is it fart coin or is it OnlyFans? Somewhere in the middle, maybe.
Yeah, maybe somewhere in the middle. I think about with crypto too. It's like, what's the point? Like, it's just gambling.
Yeah.
Casinos are good businesses.
Yeah. DraftKings sponsors every podcast but mine, but that's probably on purpose. Hey, you'd said something about like figuring out which users will pay the most, essentially. I find that such like
Yeah.
a fascinating cat and mouse game, because like even my newsletter, just like a microcosm of this, I charge $15 a month or $150 a year. There probably is somebody in there who would theoretically pay $300 a month based on the value, but like, how do you find them?
You probably need to do different pricing packages or like optionality or whatever. So like for you could do events. It's like $1,000 a year is like private dinner with other members or something like that, or like one-on-one video calls or something.
Mm.
With I don't know if this is actually the right way to go, but like you basically just have like different things that aren't offered in the lower packages. I feel like that's a fairly common way of doing it. I think for you probably think about things that have like little marginal cost or whatever. Like some people will make like a course or whatever, like a PDF, like a course, and like you make it once and it's just you can redistribute it as however many times as you want. That might be one way to think about it. And then even with like a software product, right? It's like one thing you do is like 24/7 support. Like you get the CEO's phone number or whatever. Like that could be extremely also risky, but also, are they really going to text the CEO that often for like one-on-one customer support? They're probably only going to do it if they really need it. So like you just kind of think about things where there's almost like some status related to it, or like something that you can like really silo or differentiate to like, and it's valuable for you to even give it out.
Well, the status thing, it resonates because at the end of the day, humans are social creatures. And like I often look at my newsletter and my podcast is like one of the channels for distribution is make that person look smart, give them a nugget to forward to their boss, because that's a signaling factor.
I think that's like an underrated thing. The other thing I think is kind of underrated is using memes for marketing. So one of my portfolio companies, he's like, do you really think somebody is going to read your white paper like checklist thing that you're running as an ad on LinkedIn? Like nobody scrolls LinkedIn and goes, oh man, this checklist on being SOC 2 compliant. Like I'm so pumped about this, right? Like nobody. But you might make a meme about how getting compliant sucks, and like 100 people will resonate with that and share it in Slack. And they're like, oh, what's this company? Like Secure Frame? You guys do SOC 2 compliance? Oh, interesting. Like, oh, they have a white paper on their website. Like, I'll use that when we're presenting to the board about who we're going with for the SOC 2 compliance. But you probably discovered them from someone sharing in the group chat or a meme. So that's actually one of the things that I kind of did over time. Was like I had a friend who ran a VC meme account, and I just kind of started helping him with memes. And I realized like I'd spend a weekend making some thread about something that made me look smart or thought it made me look smart. And like, no one would really care or read it. And then I'd make some meme that literally took me 2 minutes. It was like the lowest IQ possible thing. And it'd get 1,000 likes, and like the CEO of Instacart would like retweet it or whatever. And you're like there's something here with memes. Like, it's just like, it's the language of the internet, and it's so bite size, and it's easier for people to resonate with, and they spread so much faster. So when you think about like the most recent consumer product that's really taken off is probably ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And if you think about like how that spread back in the early days, it was like people just screenshotting their ChatGPT conversations and they were just blown away by like most of the time it was good things, but sometimes it was like, you'd ask like how many R's are in strawberry, and it would say 2 because like there's something, I forget what it was, or there's something with like the way that a word is stored in binary, it like lost one of the R's, so there was 2 R's in strawberry. But like it was basically memes, like people were just posting essentially their ChatGPT conversations, and I think it hit like 100 million monthly active users within a couple months. Like I think it launched in October or November, I can't remember, of 22, and it had already hit 100 million MAUs within the beginning of 2023. I think it was like January or February of 2023. So one of the fastest growing products of all time, and it just grew from memes. It was basically just everyone sharing, because ChatGPT is a very single player product, right? Like I don't think you can really use it with other people. You can share a conversation, like you can share a link to a ChatGPT convo.
I never thought about that. It is single player by nature.
But it grew so fast because they made people talk about it, because it kind of turned it into a meme. And then, I mean, that was ultimately advertising for OpenAI's enterprise business at the end of the day, right? I mean, the same thing with Google. Like Google has Google Cloud, and probably the reason that you're open to considering Google Cloud is because like you use G Suite or you use Google or YouTube, and like there's like this familiarity of trust around the brand versus trying to start from scratch. Aside from having the cash flow and balance sheet to build a cloud business. But I think there's a lot of examples of that where like you kind of use this like viral consumer thing to kind of grow. And I think even like enterprise plans in ChatGPT, like there's actually probably some people that did not want to use ChatGPT for enterprise. So, but it's because it like got so big, so successful, they had so much data, like we don't want to store it there. So I think it's a good and a bad example of how that can kind of play out.
Well, you had mentioned single player mode and bringing other people into the fold. And then we've also kind of touched on the value of a user. When you look at a social network, how do you think about like the important qualities to say like these users are worth more than others? Because in a way, like maybe a user on Reddit may not be worth as much. Like they're not all created equal, I think is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's the main thing I'm looking at, because I'm usually investing like the first or maybe the second round. So they might have not started the company yet or like built a product yet. Like I've had that with one of the social products I've invested in. I don't know what the last public number, but they're like probably one of the better retaining social apps of the past couple of years, like since Be Real. And they had just done it before and they were building a new one. And so that was just a purely like really good team. You have full confidence that even if it doesn't work, they'll like get acquired and you'll get your money back. There's almost like the downside protection there, but also like they could be the team that builds a public company. With Be Real, when I invested in them, it was their seed round. They were only in France. They had like insane retention, like just people used it, and they had never actually had super fast hyper growth. Like I know people probably were familiar with them because they kind of exploded in the US the summer of 2022, but they'd been going in France for about 2 years, and it was just they would like slowly grow and acquire, and just people stuck around. So like if you think about one of those like like revenue retention stack charts, it was just kind of one of those things where I think it was something like 60%, like 180-day retention or something like that, which is really good in consumer.
Yeah, don't you usually seem like 70% leaves after 30 days or some mind-blowing stat?
Yeah, I think this is different in AI now, because a lot of the AI companies can like generate revenue because you just charge for like some AI features. But generally speaking, probably pre-AI, if you could get 40% 1 month retention, like day 30 retention of 40%, was like you could easily raise money from people, because there was just like you had some stuff to work with. Like that was considered probably not best in class, but like top 10, 5%. Probably depends on the industry a little bit, but if you get 40% day 30 retention, like that was really, really difficult, and that you need to kind of be something there. So yeah, so with Be Real, they just had really good retention. You kind of think a lot about like what's the point of the product. Like, what behavior are you incentivizing? You probably want to lean towards some kind of a transaction. Health and fitness stuff is always kind of interesting because people will pay money for those. They're kind of like aspirational. I think 20% of US GDP is healthcare, and it's basically just like a giant scam, right? Like, if you think about like what's your compensation as an employee, most people don't see this. Maybe the CFOs listening know this, but like, I don't know, a third of the cost of employing someone is basically like healthcare and taxes.
Roughly
Or maybe it's like
22% in the US.
is healthcare.
Yeah, and then if you live in like Sweden, it's like 50% of your base
Of your
salary
comp?
you can chalk up to healthcare and state taxes.
Yeah, so it's like, like people spend a lot on healthcare. So if you can just build like a direct to consumer, like the consumer takes control of what they do with their health. So that's, I mean, examples would be like Athletic Greens, right? Like I think they're doing like 9 figures in like a supplement that you'd mix up and drink, right? Like it's just the most simple business, but people will spend. I think some of those things are like $100, $200-300 people spend on that stuff. So, and it's like it's one of those things. Like let's say you're making 100 grand a year, fully baked, your life is set, you get a promotion, you now make 200 grand a year. You already have everything you need. Like, what do you spend money on? You're going to just make your life better. So you're going to like go to the gym more. You're going to buy a nicer car, or maybe you like buy a nicer house, but you're going to like try to get stronger. You're going to try to live longer. You're going to try to look more beautiful. So I think that's like the interesting thing with consumer businesses is just like some of these, it's just like if you make people, happier or healthier or hotter or like help them get laid or help them, hit one of those like core vices or whatever, like they will spend almost like unlimited incremental income on those things in a way. So, and some of those you can't really monetize, like housing. I think housing is like a huge problem in this country. I don't know how you invest in that as a venture investor. I made one investment that still unclear. It's still super early with that, but you're always trying to figure out like how can like people spending more money on things that make them better in a way. There's like always opportunities to build some kind of a company there.
So I've been waiting for someone with your background to come on the podcast to ask this, because I look at like what are under monetized social networks or platforms and what are kind of over monetized, because there is a possibility of over monetizing someone too, and the friction becomes too much and they churn out the top. Pinterest is a company where people literally tell you what they love, but like I feel like they've just underperformed over time.
I feel like you have to, if you're doing e-commerce, you have to do your own logistics and just go full stack and do your own fulfillment. I mean, that's why Amazon is such a great business. Like you think about Amazon, you go to the Amazon website or open the app, it is objectively probably like the worst designed products ever. Like if you open the Amazon webpage on your desktop, there's like 3 menu bars stacked on top of each other. Like it's like the ugliest website.
There are like 74
like
calls to action.
Is there really?
No,
It's like
I don't know.
Like,
I mean, I can click so many things.
It's literally like the worst designed product ever. But the reason people shop there is just because it's super fast and it's the cheapest, or you think it is. So like that's all that really matters at the end of the day. Like with Pinterest, you might say like, oh, it knows what we need, but I try to buy this like yoga pant thing or this like couch that I saw, and Pinterest doesn't have the flexibility to just say like, cool, you buy it, we'll ship it to you and you'll get exactly what you ordered. We know what the price is going to be. There's like discount or coupon codes or whatever. Like what usually happens is like I think Pinterest has an ad business it's somewhat sophisticated. I don't know where they rank compared to everyone, but they're probably below Facebook and Google. Honestly, like I think if I was, I mean, this is like maybe it goes against their entire business, but if I was Pinterest, I'd like figure out how to actually do my own fulfillment and fulfill my own commerce operations. I don't know. I just like don't think you're ever going to beat Facebook in this. So you probably need to do something completely different. And that's why I think TikTok was smart with TikTok Shop.
You had a take on this a while back that I loved, and I think it was very prescient at the time, that you said like TikTok could give Amazon a run for its money.
Oh yeah. So I mean, I do think that TikTok will eventually beat Amazon if Amazon does in certain categories, probably. Like I think there's just Amazon has a cost structure advantage. Like they just have enough scale and they have enough to like, they add another plane to the fleet and it like reduces the average cost by like a penny across every order or whatever. Like it's just hard to compete against that. So I think I'm not going to pretend I know how you'd do that, but I just think you just like get products that are more aspirational or more impulsive. I think the interesting thing with TikTok is like if you think about like how a lot of the discovery happens on the internet, like if there's certain things you might go to Amazon for, but there's also a lot of things where you might be on Pinterest or Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. And there's like, I think there's an example I used in that actual article that you're talking about. There was this like TikTok yoga pants trend where this was before TikTok Shop launched. And there was like literally was like a trending search on Amazon was for like the TikTok yoga pants. They were sold out. Amazon was getting tons of free traffic basically just from people on TikTok figuring that this was a thing and like going to Amazon and buying it. But Amazon most likely was bidding for Google keywords to like own the search. Maybe some people would go to Amazon and search directly, but a lot of people were probably Googling it. So Amazon was still paying money to acquire some of those customers versus if you're already on TikTok and you can just directly shop right from the video, you're not paying any marketing costs. Like your marketing costs for TikTok were growing the app and owning the thing that then controlled the other downstream demand. So, I mean, ultimately, if I'm Amazon, I probably would acquire TikTok. I just don't think that would clear antitrust. But I think the interesting thing about where companies like Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Reddit, they just sit at the like the top of consumer attention. So like Netflix is an interesting business because you get home and you're like, long day, turn on the TV, what's on? And there's so many other companies that are just bidding for like, you turn on your Roku TV and there's like an ad for Paramount Plus at the top to try to convince you to watch Paramount Plus instead of Netflix. But your habit just goes to Netflix. So I think interesting company in that regard is probably Spotify. Like it probably lives on most people's dock screen where they're like the bottom of their phone. They probably open it multiple times a day. How many consumer products or B2B products out there would love to have somebody opening their product multiple times a day, just habitually for free, right? Like I think there's such a thing as called like retention CAC. Like a lot of people have to pay to retain some of those users. And I think the consumer businesses that kind of escape that stuff like Facebook, like our parents are probably all addicted. I don't know how much of us listening still use it, but like the boomers, like they got them. They're going to die with their phone in their hand scrolling Facebook.
Oh, dude, my mother-in-law probably listening right now. She's I guarantee you she's on Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah. That's another super undermonetized business. Like I know there's ads there. Like I think they're sponsored posts.
I think they're sponsored. I think you can basically, it's similar to like Upwork where if you're selling something, you can buy credits to boost your own thing. So it's basically the supply side advertising. But like, I think that's still relatively new. Like I think for a while it was completely free.
I think this is the interesting thing about with what's happening right now with ChatGPT. If you go to Facebook or Google's earnings and you just look at like top line, I don't know what Facebook makes a user, but it's probably like $100 ARPU a user. I maybe am getting this number wrong. So you think, okay, Facebook makes $100 a user. You think about that, but then when you actually drill down by geo, in North America, there's like a subset of users. It's probably like 40-year-old suburban moms that literally make Facebook thousands of dollars in revenue a year.
So true.
So, and then you look at like, a user in Bangladesh or like Somalia or whatever, where Facebook has a ton of users, but they probably like make literally $0. They probably lose money serving the users in Bangladesh and Somalia. So because when you just think about like the fixed cost structure of doing that thing, I don't know how big and developed and how profitable those ad businesses are, but like the most profitable business in the world is Facebook advertising to Americans and like Europeans and maybe like Koreans, Japanese, Australia. But like in Western developed markets, there's probably like 200 million people that's all that matters for these businesses. And so you look at how ChatGPT is kind of scaled up and like they've probably captured a lot of those. So they probably have a lot of the most valuable users to Facebook and to Google. I think this applies also to Google, where like if you can basically steal the Google usage of the top 10% of humans in the world, I mean, you'd basically steal all of Google's cash flow. I don't know exactly where this like threshold is. Like, do you need 22%? Do you need the top 40%? But like, I think it's pretty fair to say that ChatGPT users are probably overlapped with the or pretty comped pretty closely to the most valuable Google users. So I don't know where exactly like the breaking point is, but I do think that like if I'm in Google, I'm like I mean, I would, if I was on the board, I'd probably like be demanding immediate action like 2 years ago, because I think their cash cows kind of been going to be kind of choked by OpenAI and by ChatGPT.
I want to talk about that in a sec, because I do think, and I kind of feel it today, that Google is going to go to zero. But before we move off that real quick, this may be like a crazy contrarian take, because I'm about to speak bad about maybe the best business monetization model in history, which is Facebook ads. But like at some point, isn't there an inflection where you're like, if I make $100 off of a user to advertise someone else's products, it may be better if I just sell them directly my own products?
Yeah. I mean, to a certain extent, I think Facebook has tried to figure out this e-commerce thing.
Like what would they sell them? Like Amazon did it, like, because the other day I went and I think I searched for like a pair of boots or something, and then they had an Amazon branded pair of boots too. It's like, okay, well, that's a physical good they can sell me. I don't know what Facebook would sell me, but I'm like, if they're making that much off advertising, there's probably some sort of verticalization of this that could work.
I think the thing with Facebook though is that the ads team there is so powerful, and the advertising business is literally like 99.9% incremental gross margins. Like you just think about like you and me, we make one more scroll and see one more ad. It costs Facebook literally nothing, but they just make money from it. And what's the margin on selling us like Facebook branded boots? I don't know, like 30% gross margins or whatever. Like it's probably just like not that good. And so I think the opportunity is just get you to spend more time and just, maybe add more advertising. Like I think launching Threads to try to get more time spent on our phones to add more ad inventory is probably just way more worth it. Or doing VR. So you have this like virtual reality world, like technically everything's an ad. And you can just put ads everywhere, right? Like, I hope that that's not going to happen. You're never going to actually step into a VR world and like the entire thing's an ad, but like you can just place them wherever you want based on like Coca-Cola can be like, I want to spend $100 million running Coke ads in Meta virtual reality world. And Meta can just be like, oh, CJ's sitting down at his desk. Like, let's just put a Coke can just beside him right there. And they can just programmatically do that at scale, right? Like no one else is in a position to do that. So I just feel like that's probably the better business, honestly, at the end of the day. And I think the thing they should do is subscriptions.
Oh,
like you have like some premium subscriptions. Yeah, and I think this is also like it's at odds with the ads team, right? Like if you're showing fewer ads in the feed, at the like trade-off of trying to convince people to subscribe for things. So I don't really know how Facebook would do this or how it would play out. I think you like verified badges, like with what Twitter did. I think you get premium placement in the feed if you have the verified badge.
Verified
or you get,
boomer.
You verified boomer. Yeah, there you go. Or like you can, this could probably be interesting, is like it gives you a label that says if something's AI or not, right? Like,
oh yeah.
Once boomers become aware, like I'm sure there's so many boomers that aren't aware that they're seeing half of their Facebook feed is just AI slop. But I'm sure you could convince a good chunk of them to just pay money to get like an AI badge beside the AI slop, so they just kind of know. Honestly, I think that's probably the better way to do it. And I think going back to your original question about Substack, so Substack, the thing I first got bullish on was when they launched the app. So they basically built the subscription, like this premium content, and then now they're building an app, which is basically just like Twitter. It's just like the Facebook feed. If you get enough people to use it, they will roll out advertising. Like I don't think they're talking about it. Like they've denied that's what they're doing. But if you get 50 million people in the US to start using an app, you can monetize that with ads fairly straightforward. And so that's why I think like the upside is for Substack is like you think going back to before the internet, newspapers were basically the best businesses ever. It was a subscription model and it was also advertising, just free margin that just lays over top of the subscription business. And that's ultimately, I think that's probably like the end state of social media here. And I think it's just really hard to build that habit into people. You've kind of seen over time, Facebook's tried to do this premium content thing and it's never quite worked. I think Netflix is an interesting spot for that too. It's just like premium content and now they're layering advertising over top of it. I've always said like they're going to do ads eventually. I think they have this like free ad supported they will 100% figure out a way to layer ads over top of the premium subscription service. Like that will get there eventually, whether it's in 2 years or 20 years. But like once they need to hit the cash flow numbers to support the stock price, they will do it. It's just maybe they'll add like shopping from the Netflix video before they do ads in premium subscription content. I'm not sure, but I don't know. I just think it's the end state of all this stuff. Who knows when it'll hit, depending on like when people need to basically support the stock prices, right? Like if you just think about like the margins on some of these core businesses is like 90%, right? Like the operating margins on some of Facebook stuff is like literally like it's way closer to 100% than zero. So they're just like, all right, and you kind of saw it when stock prices went down in 22 and 23. They're just like, all right, we'll just lay off 10,000 people. We'll just cut headcount and like, cool, we're going to hit numbers now and we'll be able to like beat and raise to get the stock price back up. I mean, that's ultimately what these companies are doing. Like they have like 200,000 employees and 190,000 of them probably don't even need to be there. They're just there to like mask FTC and like regulatory, and they can play with the levers however they need to just hit the numbers that they need to keep pumping the stock price over time, like consistently.
But related to Substack, I guess it's relevant to any other consumer-facing platform that monetizes through subscriptions. Is the consumer subscription model still a viable long-term business model in your perspective? Like at what point do we just have too many subscriptions?
I think it just depends if you're adding value. Like if it's actually valuable for people. Like, do you remember what the last thing you subscribed to was?
Yes, about 30 minutes before we got on, I subscribed to something that helps me work a teleprompter. It scrolls while I read.
And you signed up because it would help you, right?
Yes, but that I look at as more of like I'm a prosumer or it's B2B. Okay, so what's the last B2C thing I signed up for that subscription? Probably a newsletter.
There you go. And you're just saying, are there too many newsletters? So I think it's just if it's a valuable thing. So it's kind of like with podcasts. You know how people say, oh, there's too many podcasts, blah, blah, blah. But most of them probably suck. And the reason we're saying that is because someone launched a bad podcast. But if somebody started a podcast that was, let's say Run the Numbers doesn't exist yet, and they're just like, I'm going to make a podcast. It's tailored to CFOs. It's how to break down the biz, like the finance side of these businesses. And like someone would be like, oh, it actually sounds pretty interesting. Like that doesn't exist yet. Like I would listen to that.
Yeah.
That'd be valuable. There's like a business model to be made. There's lots of people that want to reach CFOs and try to sell them products. So like, I think it's just, if it's a valuable thing that would add value to someone, right? Like you could probably like the day before ChatGPT launched, people were like, consumer internet's dead. And like, there's never going to be a big scaled consumer product. And now everyone is trying to like copy and steal employees from OpenAI. And I'm sure we probably saw that graph where it's like showing the number of downloads ChatGPT has gotten over the past like 2 years is the same as TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Reddit, like all combined basically, or whatever the apps are that are thrown in there. And even back to like when TikTok came in the US, people were like, there's no room for a new app, like it's completely over. Exactly the same thing with TikTok. Even when Be Real launched, people were like, there's no new consumer products. Be Real had its own reasons that it didn't work, but it was like, it had the same thing that was going on where it had like more downloads than all the other ones combined together. So I think there's always new opportunities, like based on, it can be technology maybe, or just societal and cultural changes. Like with ChatGPT, it was like the technology had gotten to a point where it worked. With Be Real, it was a more of like a cultural thing where people are like, we want to stop using social media, and they were kind of like the spend less time on Instagram positioning. With TikTok, it was everyone kind of had smartphones and everyone was watching videos vertically, but all the products were designed. Like if you think about before Instagram stories and you just scroll the Instagram or even the Facebook feed today, let's say you watch a video on the Facebook or the Twitter feed or in the Substack feed, like half of the screen is like the person's username and there's a white bar and then there's like a little thing where there's like a location and there's like shows like the comments and the likes, and like the actual video is like 30% of the screen. Versus TikTok, it was like, we're just going to make it full screen. And everyone's listening with AirPods now too, so we can make content that's focused on the sound. So that was a big thing I think with TikTok that a lot of people didn't really realize, was that it was kind of lip syncing was the first product with Musical.ly, But what they did was they made it so that you could make videos or content that was an iteration on the same sound. So like if someone would take a clip of this podcast and stick it on TikTok, someone could take our audio and our sound and make a video off of it. And so in that, with us, I'd be pretty boring. Like it might be someone like reacting to it and like, oh, interesting. Or like maybe they were like making fun of us or something. But if it's like a sound or if it's like a meme or a funny video, you would like reenact, like you would remake the video with your own video using the same audio. And that's basically what lip syncing was. And then they basically layered on other forms of content around that. But there's always like a reason that, and like a sort of like an innate need that, or like a new technology that enables one of these new things to come around. So I don't know. I'm of the point of like, there's always there's going to be new opportunities to build stuff. We always say it's saturated. Like this, we don't need any more of these. There'll never be more room for it. And we're constantly proven wrong. So
I think it's two different things. It's like, do you need something that's a really good product? We always need that. And then there's a question of how do I actually make money off of this? And I do think that time is a pendulum in a lot of ways where, like, I don't know, you're a VC. Is there ever a point in your mind where a simple transactional model actually just like, it makes more sense? We don't need to do another subscription on this.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it all just depends. Like it's like, I think there's just like there's this trade-off that you're always thinking about too, is like growing revenue as fast as possible. Like that, I feel like we're in that era right now with the AI products where it's like, you know, another company breaks the record to be the fastest to grow to 100 million ARR. Like every month there's like a new company that did it faster than before. But what happens in 3 years? Like, do they still even have 100 million in revenue? Maybe they hit escape velocity and hit billions in revenue. But like maybe they're like, could they go bankrupt because like they didn't actually solve a problem and have like a structural competitive advantage over everyone else in the space. So there's like a trade-off of like, you know, maybe actually just playing the long game and like slowly building what you need to build a sustainable like foundation across like a real business that's going to exist in 20 years. It doesn't like, I think there's always different answers on what that looks like, just depending on what kind of like the product is, what the market is. I think you're like forced to generate revenue if the capital markets are harder, but like we probably saw that in 2021, right? Or like you can raise money so much easier than raising money from customers. Like raising money from investors or raising money from customers. There's always kind of that trade-off.
You had alluded to it earlier. I want to hit on channels for distribution here. But like if we assume that Google does go to zero over time, by the way, it's pretty messed up. They're like taking my newsletter and synthesizing what I already wrote and then adding in other stuff from the internet. And then it's like, we're going to put this above your SEO and above the 6 ads. And then we'll put a little icon in the corner and we'll feed it back to you as if it's ours. But nonetheless, if we all end up just getting one box by AI, how do you think consumer startups should think about customer acquisition costs in a platform dominated world?
Somehow build your own relationship with the customer, whether that's like your own app, your own content. Like I have one portfolio company. It's called Pock Pock. It is like a digital toy room for kids. So it's kind of like Montessori inspired mobile app games. So I don't know if anyone here is a parent, but you know, you probably feel guilty about having your kids do any sort of screen time. And they kind of like, we've probably seen examples of like Cocomelon where it's just like fast paced, like it sucks them in, but they get addicted and like they can watch
like
it
crack
for 8 hours. It like melts their brain.
Yeah.
So what she did is she basically built a product that she could feel comfortable just like giving to her kid to play. And it's sort of like, it's like Montessori school inspired, but in an app. So it's very calming, very slow. The way I describe it to people is that you can like take it away from your kid and there's like no fighting and no complaining about it. Like there's just a clean break. One of the things that they just did recently is they launched a YouTube channel, and it's basically the same type of concept in the app, but just in YouTube videos. So if you look at the data, like kids content is like the most streamed, viewed stuff on YouTube, like even more than the Mr. Beast type stuff. It's like Miss Rachel, I think, is one of the popular ones. Cocomelon is pretty
We're a big
popular.
Miss Rachel household.
Yeah. So this is basically, it's like they're trying to build like calming stuff that it's less like the kid wants to watch. It's more the parent who controls it just says, we're going to watch Pock Pock. today. And it's literally like someone calmly playing with a toy car. It does have a lot of the elements that makes content captivating, like fast moving, but it's mostly just of like there's always something going on. Like there's one they like build a house and they just have some toys. It's like wooden block toy things, and they're like, you know, driving up the dump truck, and then they're like tipping it, and like some sand's falling out, and they're like laying the bricks, and it's like playing with the toy. And that's kind of what you do when you play the app. But I kind of say all this because they were like, okay, we pay Google ads and like we run Facebook ads and like it works and like we acquire customers. It's our own kind of ecosystem. Like we want people to return to our app and open it. But now if we make YouTube content, like you don't pay for YouTube. Like it's just free advertising in a way for people to download the app. You know, one thing they could then do is actually make a TV show or like Netflix type, Amazon Prime, and in that case, you know, it's advertising for the product, but they probably license it from you. So you make money selling the content to the streaming platforms that then brings them back into your ecosystem. So I think it's always like you want to be building your own touch point with the customer in some way. And like, I think it's okay to spend like, and that actually is most scalable. Like the most scalable customer acquisition channel ever is just go to Google and Facebook and be like, I want to spend $100 million. Just get me customers, just meet my parameters. And like, if it does, just spend it. And like, you can't do that anywhere else.
Are you long paid acquisition, or do you think it changes with OpenAI?
I haven't really thought about this. Yeah. I mean, I think
maybe to refine the question, I guess like that was a weird way to ask it because we're always going to pay for acquisition. It's just do the channels in which we rely upon. Like it was the old CMO's adage, right, Turner? Like 50% of my marketing budget is spent in the wrong place. I just don't know which one. And the other adage was like 60% of all VC money goes to Google AdWords. So it's all going to go somewhere else. The question, I guess, is it further down the funnel and is it through a different medium?
I just think it's always going to change. Like, I think if you just expect that the world is going to stay as it is forever, like that, you'll be wrong about that. Like the channels are always going to change. I think the way I think about it is you should always be trying to find new undervalued channels. Like you should probably have, I'm not a professional marketer necessarily, like especially paid marketer, but I'd probably you have like scaled recurring, you know, they're going to work channels. Like those are probably Google and Facebook. And then depending on where else you found that works, like maybe YouTube ads, linear TV, Hulu, whatever, like whatever works, you like consistently do them. But then you might find influencer marketing, try it, scale it up. If it works, like you're always testing new things like ChatGPT paid ads. I don't even think they have them yet. Perplexity does, but like test it out, see if it works, scale it up if it does until the point that it doesn't. Like, and you'll see it, people complaining all the time about like Meta's broken today, or like post Apple ad tracking. Meta didn't work for a couple months. So like you kind of just have to assume that everything's going to change. But then also it's like Meta's got fixed and it works even better now today. So it's like you might have abandoned it and be like, oh, Facebook's done. Apple has killed all paid ads. But now they objectively, like in some cases, it actually works better. So I think it's like you just need to always be thinking about what the new channels might be, and maybe podcasts are a great channel. Maybe podcasts actually are a terrible channel, right? Like you don't know.
Don't tell my sponsors that, but yeah.
Well, I think I told people earlier they should be signing up for all the ads that they got. So I think hopefully you're good.
I do think that like the budgets for a lot of these companies will have to go hunting for like further down the funnel, closer to purchase, higher intent stuff. And a lot of that will revolve around having like a parasocial relationship, like having somebody in your ear for an hour where you feel like you know them.
Yeah.
It's hard to fake who you are for like 200 episodes. So they either like you and trust you or they don't, or like real live events. Like I do think those are having a big comeback.
Yeah. I think it's like the costs always go up. Like your CAC will just always increase. You think about like Super Bowl ads, like what do they cost? Like every year they go
like
up.
$9 million per spot now.
Yeah, and like it just continues to increase. Like if you look at Facebook's ARPU, constantly goes up. Like they're always figuring out how to charge you more money. So I mean, there's one element of like figure out how to find new undervalued channels, but it also might be better to just like make more money off of your existing customers. Like, sure, what if your CAC might go up by 20%? What if you double the revenue per customer because you added a new product, or you half of them didn't churn because you did something? And maybe like existing customer marketing, I think is actually always undervalued. Like it's just so much easier to just get an existing $1 million customer to just renew than acquire an entirely new $1 million customer.
It's so well
Right.
said.
So, well, maybe that's not actually true. Maybe it depends on your product. Like you need a good product. Like if your product's shit, they're going to churn no matter what, or they're not going to sign up. So yeah, I think it's the way I think about it is just like understand your customers, make a good product, figure out how to reach them, build a relationship, have them trust you, listen to them. And this is like YC 101. Like hopefully no one's hearing all this stuff for the first time, but I think you should figure like I think the CAC is like an interesting thing to be thinking about, but also just new products or expansion opportunities. I think that like you just have to assume your CAC is going to keep going up. So it's like finding new channels, finding new products, making your customers happier. I think is just you kind of always have to do it. Like I don't think you can ever just say like we're set and we're done and our business is just going to be good for the next 50 years and it's just like a perpetual cash flow thing. Like if there's like everyone's going to compete for your margin. Like whatever advantage you have, people are going to copy it and reduce your margin. So and whether that's making you lower your price or increasing your costs, like it's just a fact of life. So it's capitalism.
Your margin is my opportunity.
Exactly.
Well, maybe gearing for a close here, Turner. You've been at this investing game for a while now. It feels like we're kind of at an inflection point, whether you're talking B2B, B2C, marketplaces, just how you reach people and how you monetize them. There are more choices than ever. What gets you most excited if you think about the stuff you're going to invest in over the next year to 18 months?
I like investing earlier rather than later. So I've been trying to, I think if people follow the data in venture, I think first off, it's like a super power law driven, very high dispersion of returns. It's basically, if you look at the averages across different asset classes, it's probably like the highest returning, but there's a real fluctuation. Like you may be in either, if you invest in two funds, one of them might be literally like the worst performing asset across every asset class. One of them might be the best performing asset across every asset class. And, they average out to outperforming everything else. So it's attracted a lot of capital that's came in and there's just like a lot of competition. There's a lot of like anything that's consensus or like known to work, pretty fairly well-funded businesses. It's easier to raise money as a founder. So I think it's great for founders. I think for me, I'm trying to find stuff that's not the most obvious looking. Like I kind of think about what is the A16Z of the world blogging about, like, or even worse, like what did they raise a dedicated fund for? Like those types of things are optimally priced. Like those are pretty fairly or overvalued. I think a lot about just like capital, like supply demand mismatch. So if you're an investor and you're trying to make money and you're funding pretty early stage stuff, like you want to find areas where there's like an outsized difference between like there's just not enough capital going in, or maybe there's like a sufficient amount and there's like a lot of opportunity. So I think a lot about just finding things that are like a little bit unique, but this could still be a public company in 10 or 20 years. Hopefully sooner than that, hopefully not further out than that. But like, could this get to $1 billion in revenue? And that's extremely difficult to do. Like I make it sound like it's super easy, but it's really hard to like build a company from nothing. And it's doing billions in the public markets. But I think that's ultimately the point. So yeah, on the consumer side, I think a lot about how we're shifting disposable income. Like how do you take advantage of like shifts in consumer disposable income? So like giving consumers more control over their health, I think is interesting. Like people will just spend more solving big problems. I mean, big problems in the world right now, like our food system kind of poisons us. Like it's really not that, like our food is not healthy. You think of like the big incumbent CPG companies. I mean, they do, I actually don't know the number, like if you like flow through everything, but we sell $1 trillion of groceries every year in this country. And the majority of them are like packaged garbage. And most of them are run by bureaucrats who control the entire income statement and balance sheet. And they get paid maybe 10 to 50 million a year. And they have no equity in the business. And they're just owned by like mutual funds and index funds. So I'm really interested in just like a modern day Kellogg or like modern day, like rebuilding the food supply chain. I think there's like a lot of changes coming regulatory that basically says like you can't sell garbage to consumers anymore. And I think it's just, do you really think Pepsi and Coke and Dr. Pepper and Kellogg and General Mills, like, are they actually, they're going to do the bare minimum possible to continue hitting numbers. So I think there's a big opportunity to just make like a new modern day food supply chain stack, new businesses that are just healthier food for you. And the same thing on the healthcare side. I mean, it's just like we talked earlier, it's kind of a joke. A lot of it actually goes to old people. Like a lot of healthcare stuff just is and it's just like, it's super inefficient. We spend so much money on it. Can you empower people to make more decisions there? I think that's interesting. Generally, like fitness. You think about like the average like 30-year-old, what do they probably spend money on? It's like rent, maybe it's like car insurance, whatever. But like they're probably spending a majority of their disposable income on like aspirational health, aspirational fitness,
Creatine
like looking
gummies.
hotter, creatine gummies, like maybe travel is like in there. And I think, I don't know, AI is kind of changing what we can kind of do. You know, you can kind of like automate things. You can help do work for people. I think a lot of the incumbents are probably going to win consumer generic AI though. So I think a lot about just really vertical, like is OpenAI going to make a gym? Like one thing I think would be a really interesting concept is like it's like a gym. You subscribe to it. You go there to work out, but there's also childcare, there's co-working, doctor's office, you get your groceries. It's basically like the modern day, just, you know, you spend everything you don't spend housing on. And maybe you rent there too, or like you own.
Equinox meets Whole Foods.
Exactly, yeah. And like instead of getting prescribed like medicine, you actually get food. Like they're just like, oh, you should buy more beans and rice and like broccoli or whatever. I don't know. Just like it's like this full stack health, you know, making better. Like you can capture like 50% of someone's income probably if you do that right. And it's just like pretty insane, bold things. It's like you can't just do that right off the bat. You probably have to like ladder up in how you think about it. But I think that's kind of the way you got to do it. Is you got to figure out like what's a specific kind of wedge corner product, like specific, unique, really differentiated that doesn't exist yet, and probably profitable. Like we're just like with that example, right? It's like we're making like a fitness tracker. It's profitable, and then we open a gym, and then there's like personalized health coaching and like fitness personal trainers, and we'll like sell you groceries, and like you can also live there, and there's also like built-in childcare, and you can co-work from it or whatever, right? Like maybe that's the layer that you layer all those on, but it's like profitable from day one. I don't know. And again, I'm just kind of making this stuff up, but that's like generally I think what you should probably be trying to do if you're trying to start a new company right now. Is like you got to think of like, how do I actually have a really big impact in the world? And that's kind of stuff I want to invest in. So,
and you're also hitting on the layer cake strategy. It was fun to hear you, regardless of what the example was, just go through the thinking of how you add incremental things that are tangentially related to make it more valuable.
And maybe the best way is actually do full stack right from the start. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like if you think about a company like SpaceX, it's like you solve the super hard problem launching the rockets. And then actually, I think the majority of SpaceX revenue right now actually comes from the satellite business, like satellite internet business. So I think there's always opportunities. Like you solve a super hard problem or you do a super difficult thing that no one else has wanted to do. And then that actually unlocks like the layering of different revenue and different products. So I think about that a lot too from the investing side. It's like pre-seed round, somebody's starting the company, they're raising like $2 million, but it's like, we're trying to solve this super hard thing that just kind of seems inconsequential or no one else is focused on it. But there's like $100 billion in revenue just sitting up there. Like the utility companies, like they're all like going bankrupt. They like, right. Like what's that one, PG&E in California? Don't they go bankrupt like every couple of years or whatever? It's like outdated infrastructure, like power lines. We've got these like wooden poles that are like above the earth and they're like decaying and like covered in lead and like getting all these outages. Like maybe that's an interesting company, but that's basically what SpaceX and Tesla did, right? Is he's like, now he's just eating them because and again, they pay a dividend. They pay out like most of their cash flow to shareholders. They have no money to reinvest. And they're owned by like shareholders who want the cash flow every year. Like imagine being the CEO of one of those companies trying to compete against Tesla on your utility business. Like just quit and go do something else. Like you're not going to win. So I think that's always an interesting thing to compete against. Is just like an incumbent company that is basically being run by professional managers that have no skin in the game and their shareholders do not want any change. I think it's hard to find. or you find a business where like incentives are completely against ever trying to compete with you until it's too late. And by that I mean like you get a Wall Street Journal article about how you're like the best performing company, like your stock's up 1,000% in the last 5 years. And then like then that's when people start to change, right? Like I think there's like a classic thing with Amazon is like people like Walmart like didn't compete against Amazon because they thought it was unprofitable. And then also Walmart compensated the store managers based on store sales, and like online orders didn't count for their compensation. So if there's like people in your region that would normally come to your store, you're like actively trying to get them to not shop online. And everyone knows e-commerce is kind of like a scale thing, and like you need scale. So you basically have the incentives on the local level, like don't shop online, come to the store because that's how you get compensated. And also the meme is that e-commerce is not profitable. Amazon doesn't make money. Meanwhile, Amazon has now become, I think, fourth largest company in the world by market cap. I don't think they're bigger than Walmart in revenue yet, but still, it's like it's kind of game over. Like Amazon's there.
Dude, doing hard things is a moat. Like that's what I'm taking away from this.
I think doing hard things it's extremely hard to do. Like there's a reason people don't do it. But yeah, I think it's definitely a moat. I think it's like you do hard things in an area where people think that something can't be done, because like they'll just write you off until it's too late for them.
Yeah, and then at that point you have escape velocity.
Yeah, but then also it's like you probably have to work harder. It's harder in general, but like how much fun is that working on something like no one's ever done before or no one thought could be done? And then people are like, oh shit, you did it.
Yeah.
It's like a podcast for CFOs, the slightly different scale of like difficulty level, but people are probably like, dude, CJ, like no one would listen to that. But now you're like, hey, people are listening. Like I accomplished something pretty hard and no one else thought it could be done. So
you're too kind, man. Thanks. If people want to find you, where should they look first?
It depends. If you like memes, I mostly just kind of make jokes on Twitter. That's probably where I have the most followers. If you are interested in the podcast, maybe subscribe to my newsletter, which is, I don't think I've actually sent a post in about a year and a half. It's mostly podcast episodes, but that is thesplit.it. So the SPL.it. That's a newsletter.
.it. Wow, that's a good one right there.
Yeah, I think it's an Italian domain.
And I've just learned that .so is Somalia. I thought it was like some cool tech thing, but it's really Somalia.
Yeah, and then there's like .ai is like the Antigua Islands or something. There's actually some company, I think it might be .tk, and their domain registrar is like 20% of GDP of the country or something like that. It's just this island in the Pacific.
Yeah.
And then I'm on LinkedIn. I mostly post video highlights from my podcast. A little bit less. If you like podcasts and you like learning stuff.
I love your pod. Yeah, I'm an avid listener. Well, Turner Novak, purveyor of dank memes and one of my favorite VCs. Thanks for joining me, man. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Run the Numbers is a mostly LLC production. Yelling an intro by Fat Joe. Artwork by some AI thingamajig. Podcast and video editing is done by Cleancast at cleancast.io. Nothing said on this podcast is intended to be business or investment advice. It's the sole opinion of me, a guy who feeds his dog too much ice cream and has a history of net operating losses, LOL. If you like this podcast, please hit subscribe. It would mean a lot to me. And also check out mostlymetrics.com. That's my newsletter where I explore business models and financial metrics. Thanks for riding with me. Share this with your friends. Peace.